Good morning. I'm attorney Larry Fields, and I'm joined by Dr. Charles Alexander and the Mike Jones this morning. Welcome to the Level Set. We have a couple of issues that we'd like to talk to you all about, and we thank you for ingratiating us. And we're going to get to it as we attempt to be judicious with your time. Last week, in the St. Louis American, our own Mike Jones published an article that we tend to have some curiosity about delving into deeper. Imagine that. Mike, I believe the title of the article was, The Enemy is Us, something along those lines. If you could
Yep.
delve into that, and I want to, I want to specifically ask who is us with respect to those individuals that you referred to in the article. The article is about the current clustering of America as it is, and the um, uh, friction that's existing, who's responsible for it, who's the problem, and so forth. But I would, this morning we are blessed to have the actual author of that, and Mike, I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay. That's interesting. It's interesting that uh, for me, kind of what I do and what we do is really kind of like if we were jazz musicians. Uh, when I initially wrote the piece, I was thinking about one thing as I revisited the piece at the end, and after the American published it, it expanded for me. So when I first wrote the piece, I was thinking about white folks, and I borrowed an iconic cartoon from the late '60s. There was this when newspaper comics strips. A lot of them were really political in daily papers. Doonesbury, and one of the top was something called Pogo, and it was these animals in the swamp, and they talked about all sorts of stuff, topics of the day. And this one that became iconic, I can't think of the guy's name, that was the author of the comic strips, was the Pogo, the frog or whatever he was. That he and a friend who was another animal, they were walking through the swamp, and they was walking over all this stuff, and they couldn't hardly get through it. Their feet were hurting, and he wrote this cartoon or this strip was around Earth Day, and that was when the environmental movement was first getting started. So at the end of the strip, the last panel, they were talking about alluding to how all the guy, his friend asked a question about where does all this come from? And Pogo's answer was, I have seen the enemy, and the enemy is us. That how this got like this, didn't nobody do it. We did it. He was talking about how the environment. And when I first wrote the piece, I was thinking about why we can't get a handle on the issues in America politically. And my thought was, as I was when I wrote it, was it's because white people cannot come to grips with white people. Okay, that fundamentally, if you just took the polls, the percentage of black and Hispanic and Asians that vote for Democrats are more than substantial. I mean, there's someplace between 70 and 90%. Okay, and that would make any politician happy in any group. We're always talking about black turnout, minority turnout, because white folks don't vote for Democrats. That the last Democratic candidate to have a majority of the white vote was Lyndon Johnson when you all were small children, 1964. I'm a freshman in high school in 1964. So that lets you know how long ago that was. And so when you listen to pundits on TV and the talking heads, they're always talking about America, Republicans, Democrats. They don't ever say white folks. Nobody, you'll never hear anybody black or white on television say our problem is white people. That if white people weren't the way they were, the majority, we wouldn't be having this Trump discussion. If white people trended like everybody else, Trump never would have been president the first time. But white people cannot bring themselves to look in the mirror and say, we the problem. Now, what do we do about us? Because if we could fix us, we would fix the problem of America. So that was my thinking when I wrote it. Then as I reflected on it, again, it's kind of like music. Then when I played it again, so to speak, I started thinking about us and our condition. And literally, we got the same issue. We have tendency to focus on our environment or the conditions in America or white America, but fundamentally, what we're in control of is how we respond to that. We're not in control of the environment, but we are always in control of what we think about, how we think about it, and how we respond to it. And a major part of the trauma we experienced and the incontinence of our communities and our culture, to use that word metaphorically, could use it literally if I think about it, is a function of how we think and act now. That we can't fix white folks, but a lot of this chaos is a function of we no longer fix ourselves, or we don't think in terms of ourselves. So, for everybody who's too young to know what care who Pogo was, I thought about it. I could have said Michael Jackson, and it starts with the man in the mirror. Okay, that literally in all the situations, the existential question is, what are you going to do about it? Okay, independent of the conditions that you didn't create, that you're not in control of, you're always in control of how you respond. And as an extension to a piece that I wrote this week, if you look at the ancestors, the Frederick Douglasses, the Du Boises, the Ida B. Wellses, the Harriet Tubman, what was their response to our condition? And because they responded the way they did, it framed and changed the issue and what happened. So part of the whole thought behind the piece is that at some point you have to assume responsibility for yourself independent of the circumstance. And it's really what you try to teach your children. And at a certain point, you tell everybody, and everybody who's been a parent who's tried to do it right knows that they've had conversations with their adolescent child at some point where you say, well, all that notwithstanding, what are you going to do? Because ultimately, you got to teach that life is not what happens to you. Life is how you respond to of what happens to you, and you're completely in control of that. And that is a conversation that we haven't had, that we don't want to seem to have. And the thing that I would allude to is uh, there's a great piece in the Washington Post this weekend about a conversation of black barbershop, but it starts with the older brothers in the shop talking about Biden and Trump are both too old. Okay. And ain't nothing wrong with saying that. I said that last week, I think, in our extended conversation. That's the truth. Okay. And this notion that you got black leadership saying, well, we can't say that. Yeah, you can say that. Okay. Now, I don't know why white people don't want to say it, because it really don't change the situation. He's too old and we ought not be here, but he is too old and this is where we are. So now the question is, what do you do? Okay. But refusing to recognize that he's too old is ridiculous. Why? Because it hurts his feelings, or you think it tells the enemy something that they don't already know? I mean, that to me is the damnedest part about this. We can't talk about it. Because, why? Because everybody else knows he's too old. So you admitting to that fact is like saying, well, the sun will come up in the east tomorrow morning. Okay. And you say, don't say that, because then they'll know. They already know that, because the sun comes up in the east every morning. Okay. And
Let me ask you this, Mike, with
yeah,
respect to the first part of your comment, I mean, of your statements. Is the problem that we are reacting instead of proffering an offense? Because we're in a space where if you're reacting, if your whole platform is an ad hoc platform, you've already lost. We don't have, and I can tell you this, if Mike Jones was at the table, you would go into the meeting knowing what you wanted. You would not go into the meeting waiting to hear what they said, and then based off of what they said, ask for remnants that are going to save you. I mean, have we become this reactionary? And I say that based on the realization that we've, in the words of Dr. Amos Wilson, we have been totally taught to solve the problems of white folks from the moment we've gone to school until we've gotten our PhDs. And so we have become inculcated in solving their problems without even attempting to deal with solving our own problems. And at the same time, we are blaming ourselves for appearing to be what America has made all over the world, which is a failed state as a community. We could very well say, black Black community in the United States is a third world country and a failed state, but that does not happen in a vacuum. That was an intentional actions of someone.
I think you're spot on, Larry. That literally is our problem. As you were talking, I thought about what I told somebody last week. And since all of us here are semi-informed basketball fans, I told somebody that, and this was to make a political point, that Nolan Richardson was probably my favorite basketball coach, and when he was at Arkansas. Yeah, I didn't say the best. I just said my favorite, although he's one of the best. And it was because Arkansas always attacked, whether they were on defense or offense. They were attacking you. And they played 94 feet, all 94 feet for the whole 40 minutes. And literally, their motto was, or how people described it, it was 40 minutes of hell. So literally, they were coming for you for 40 minutes. Now, if you could withstand that, you had a chance to beat them. But if you wasn't built for that, they were going to just literally wear you down. But they didn't. Nolan Richardson's Arkansas team's strategy was not based on who they were playing. He said, this is the way we play. So if anybody's going to make an adjustment, you're going to have to make an adjustment to us, because I refuse to make an adjustment to you. And while I might think this is a winning strategy, what I'm more committed to, if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose playing the way I want to play. Okay? Nobody will dictate how I play. You're just going to have to beat me, and I'm going to have to beat you. And I think we suffer from what you just said, Larry. We don't have a philosophical position about how we play the game. Because once you have that, you play the same way every time. You then worry just about your execution, but you don't worry about your strategy. It's because we play everybody like this. I don't care who they are. They can be big, they can be small. Don't make any difference. These are our strengths. We play to our strengths, not to our opponent's weakness. And that's a mindset. And you're supposed to do that in politics. This is why I'm here. I said that, making this as a metaphor, I said we should treat our politics the way serious gangsters treat their business. And serious gangsters, I ain't talking about would-be thugs, I'm talking about serious gangsters, don't ever ask but one question. Have you got my money? There ain't nothing else to talk about. Have you got my money? And that ought to be our political frame. Did you bring my bag? If you didn't, then we don't have nothing to talk about, and I don't even know why you're here. And until we can get that kind of steel built in us. But what you said in the piece that I wrote this week, I quoted Audre Lorde, the feminist sister, radical thought leader, etc. She died in the early 90s. And her famous quote is, you can't use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. And that's what we keep trying to do. We keep trying to take their stuff to use it to beat them. And you need to be, and we need our stuff if we're going to have a chance to win.
That's true. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by the attorney, Gerald Christmas. Good morning, brother.
Good morning. Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning. We're going to go right to Dr. Alexander, and then we're coming directly to the attorney, Gerald Christmas.
You referenced Amos Wilson. I'll reference Malcolm. What's the matter? We sick, boss? And that's that has been that's been the nature of things. In this current situation, we can see very clearly that the gentleman down in South Carolina is and has been a problem. We can see that the gentleman from New York, who's the highest ranking whatever, is a problem. The CBC as a whole is a problem. There's 20 some odd representatives and senators who have called for Biden to sit down, and the CBC is silent. All of them saying Jack Dooley squat. And if they say anything, so it's like 2 or 3 people speaking on conditions of anonymity. What the hell is that? Who are you representing free of your name? What is that? And then those who actually go on the record, like Cleaver in Kansas City, oh well, I'm with them until we ain't. What? This is foolishness. And so we only have ourselves to blame from the perspective that we went into this thing last election talking about anybody but Trump. Said it then, I say it now. That shit is not sustainable. That is not a political philosophy. That's 4th and 20 Hail Mary. You can't play like that. And so then you even have people in that space, well, once we get past the election, then okay. When we got past the election, the mainstream Democratic Party went out of its way not to suppress the enemy, but to suppress the progressive caucus of the Democratic Party. After doing that, Biden then went on a killing spree and has been a warmonger, mongrel since, which further drives away young folks and other progressive thinking people. And then you can't say
just a point. The reason war doesn't appeal to young people because they have to go fight it.
They're the ones that gotta fight.
Old son of bitches who start wars are at home.
Yes.
And my father used to say, war is old men sending young men off to die about their argument.
And so this is where we find ourselves, right? And to Mike's point, so now you can't say he old. So they come up with this list of things that you can't say about Biden, because if you say that, then somehow or another that elevates Trump. You don't even have to mention Trump to talk about the shortcomings and failures of Joe Biden. They 2 different things. And so we are here. Why? Because the DNC as a whole is also a continuous criminal operation. And the CBC is complicit. How do we get through a primary? We don't even know who was on the ticket. I mean, who were the people in the primary? He literally ran unopposed. Nobody asked me if I wanted that. Nobody asked y'all. Not even Cori Bush. Did Cori Bush come to y'all and say, hey, this is what they about to try to do. We need to rise up. She ain't do that. Nobody did that. And so we had a primary that was set up by the DNC, and then the more people started to express concerns, they said, well, the will of the people has been said. That was not the will of the people. That's what you gave the people. And because the people wanted to be engaged, that's what they did. Because again, what did you start doing? Is him or Trump. What about all of the rest of the Democratic talent? There is no Democratic talent. And so to the degree that we don't hold our representatives, them 60 or so jokers that call themselves the CBC, accountable in any meaningful way, that's our fault.
As we get ready to go to Attorney Christmas, we need to put war in its proper perspective. That's the only time you hear the entire country talking about neoliberalism as we go and try and exploit these, Latin American and African countries. War is still the same thing it's been since the Roman Empire. I'm coming to take your resources. Forget this ideological thing. There hasn't been an American in the history of America to die over an ideological piece. These have all been resources, and we need to say what it is. And Trump, in his address on Thursday, is talking about increasing and enlarging the war and a mandatory draft status, meaning that he plans on going to get some more things. And guess who he's going to get them for and turn them over to? Corporations. The government's not going to own them. We're not going to benefit from that. We continue to fund things. You know, it blows my mind that we yeah, allow all the Korean stores and certain neighborhoods and certain cities and act as if these individuals pull themselves up by the bootstraps, when in fact our tax dollars went over there for our brothers and sisters and uncles and fathers and mothers to die in the Korean War, come back in body bags, and they benefit. The Koreans benefited from that more than we did. We've got to wake up. Dr. Christmas, in terms of Juris Doctorate, what are your thoughts this morning?
Good morning. How's everybody doing? I just want to tell y'all, I'm just happy
What's
to
up,
see.
Attorney Chris?
I'm happy to see everybody this morning. And I appreciate each and every one of you. I feel like I'm back in my right mind today. Grief is a process that you have to go through. And the hardest part of going through grief, or the hardest part for me, is like, the first, 72 hours, where it was just, the grief seemed unbearable. Like I could not sustain it. And then, you just go through this whole time period where it's just on the front of your mind every waking minute. Every time you wake up, every thought you have is at the front of your mind, and you just can't get past it. And then it begins to subside, and you start to feel like you back in your right mind. And for us, especially Larry, who always are dealing with other people's issues, you don't really ever feel like you can lose control because you always in control. I always feel like I'm Gerald Christmas. Don't say anything, don't sign anything. Call me first. I'll handle it. I never think that I'll be in a position where I can't even handle myself, let alone not handle a situation. But you can get in those places. And I'm just glad to be back, back all the way in my head, still grieving, but back in my head and having an energy level to get out and make a difference. And I think, what everybody is saying is what we have to individually think about. What are we going to do? Because we had this conversation last night, Larry, with a friend of ours about what is the clergy going to do, how silent the clergy is. But it's not just the clergy, it's everybody in our community. The silence is overwhelming that we are not challenging any of these issues, Mike. Part of it is because, my grandmother would always say, a lump of coal don't become a diamond without pressure. It's the pressure of those times that created the Harriet Tubman, that created the W.B.D. Du Bois. And right now, too many people feel like, especially in our community, in the Black community, they feel like they're living in good times. They don't see an issue. They don't understand that it's problematic, especially those that are in an upper class status. I had someone tell me last night that they could not vote for Cori Bush because she was not articulate enough for them. Now, I've never not been able to understand what Cori Bush was saying. Whenever she's talking, I can always understand every word she's saying. She may not be a Rhodes Scholar, but she's pretty articulate to me, as opposed to me voting for someone like Wesley Bell, who is totally funded by AIPAC. We had this conversation. I don't see a Black reason to vote for Wesley Bell when I know that he is already supported and bought by another entity. We should know enough about politics to know that he won't be able to make a decision first about us because he's going to have to first go through AIPAC to get permission to do everything if he goes to Congress. But they just want to ignore all of that. And they just want to ignore our situation. And I think individually, we have to start being more vocal and we have to start challenging these individuals. And if stop being, I think one of the things is that we're oversensitive. We're oversensitive about people's feelings and how we think they may react to what we're saying. I think, you know, one of the things about the whole situation with Biden, and we talk about, we can't say Biden is too old because we think that that is going to make older people or people we respect feel some kind of way when we say that Biden is too old because we're saying that maybe they're too old to do things. And that's not the case. Biden is too old to be president. But I've been having that conversation with some of my elders, and they take offense to that when I say Biden is too old to be the president, as if I'm talking about them in particular. And I'm not. I'm just saying that we have to have somebody in that office after watching that debate that can at least counterpunch. We watched him in that debate and he was unable to bring his thoughts together fast enough to respond to what was being said to him. And that's problematic in a president and especially in a debate. So I agree with everything that is said. The question is, how do we start moving ourselves individually to challenge our networks to be more aggressive, or either individually, we have to just start being bolder in order for us to get to a solution? Because without that, we're not going to get any movement.
Well, Joe, I think that, again, excuse me, our problem is that we're seeking charismatic leadership, or we're seeking leadership from some individual otherwise,
right?
You know, and that's even one of the brothers in the barbershop said that in the article.
And we really are
Mike
seeking charismatic leadership. We really are. We are desperate for this.
It's a failed proposition. And so again, we have to go back, you know, we have to consult, we got to confer with the elders. That's why there was a Negro Convention movement. We have a set of things that are important to us, period. We have to advance those things. And then the people who are able to help us to achieve or to obtain those things that we've said historically are important to us, those are the people that we deal with.
But let me ask
Not
you this,
the other
Dr.
way around.
Alexander. Can I ask you this real quick? When you say we have to consult to the elders, our elders are quiet too right now. It's not
No.
just...
I'm not talking about these clowns that's walking around doing nothing. I'm talking about the literature.
Okay, are you going back to the... All right.
I'm talking about the books. I'm talking about what's written. I'm talking about the historical fact. That's what I'm talking about. That's a great point, Joe, because we get caught up in that thing. And like these people that you're talking about, these comfortable people, that would be us. We make up 10%. We're 10% of the population. And so we got more of the resources, but we're not, we just an nth of the population. And so within that, we got to do exactly what you did. We got to have those conversations with those folks who are really, I think the easiest way to say it is that they selfish. And so folks who have sitting around indifferent, talking about how they're going to be okay regardless, you know, and stuff like that. And they don't want to do things that's going to put whatever their relative comfort is in jeopardy, you know, not overtly. They don't want to do that, even though by not acting in this moment, they are doing just that. And so, and just a quick point of clarity, when I was referencing Cori Bush to start with, I was referencing her to speak to the the Democratic parties, just to reiterate, the Democratic Party's intentional effort to suppress the progressive wing. And the reason why she's not speaking is because of that. And they are, and even though they have, you know, for all intents and purposes, silenced her, they now running this clown, you know, Wesley Bell, who represents white supremacy, who represents the Zionists.
And they're
You know,
happy to get behind him. They are happy to get behind.
And so the people in the 10% are going to vote for him, right? And watch all of our resources go to stand up a country of white supremacists. 2 countries of white supremacists. And so a vote for Wesley Bell is a vote for all your tax dollars going to Israel and, you know, the Ukraine, and support their middle class. That's what happens with that, right? This is not complicated. This is pretty simple. This is what we're seeing. And so, but this is not, it's none of it is complicated. None of it is new. This is what it's been looking like. And we have to be more intentional about what we want in representation.
Yeah.
You know, we set the agenda and we find the people that can meet our needs. Yes, sir, Mike.
Let me say this real quick, because you know, a lot of this is feel. When you talk about jazz, Mike Jones, a lot of this is feel, and unbeknownst to Attorney Christmas, or not in his full consciousness, he stated that these individuals are not selecting Cori Bush and those like her because they're not Rhodes Scholars, which is, we have got to do a better job of scrutinizing individuals that have been rubber stamped by individuals like Rhodes, because Rhodes, you know, that there have been very few more racist and imperialistic characters that maintain status today. That this man was a full-fledged racist, white supremacist. And you're right, we are engaging in this respectability politics to the gallows, because that's all that is. We're going to the gallows, and engage in a respectability. And see, the issue is when you talk about that 10%, Doc, that 10% still does not understand that they part of the game too. You're the biggest part of the game. And once again, I'm going to reference our Morehouse brother who said that the rat that received rewards is as big a part of the game as the rat that received punishment. You still part of the experiment, and you're not the experimenter. So, I mean, we just don't understand any of the nuances of the game that we're playing. So even if you're successful, you're leaving things on the table because you don't even know what part of the game you are. Mike Jones, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you didn't. Here's I'm gonna make a couple I don't want to say corrections, but additions. Anybody you're talking to old knows when they're too old if they tell the truth. Okay, I mean, I'm older, and here's the other thing. If you ever been an apex predator player, you know when you ain't that no more. And the reason you quit playing is because I can't be that. I ain't that dude no more. And if I can't be that dude, I step off, because that's who I am every time I step on the floor. The reason I use sports metaphors is because life is complex and people get confused. So I take sports because everybody thinks they know something about it, but at least they understand the vocabulary and the jargon. And as Larry's carpenter friend said, when asked why did he speak in parables, he said, so that my people may understand. So I need you to understand the parable. If you understand the parable, you can get the point that you can be too old for certain things. You're too old to play, but you ain't too old to coach. Okay. And so your experience and wisdom needs to stay in the game for the benefit of players who gonna come after you. Okay. And there's two aspects of athletic development in any sport. There's talent, which is a given, because if you ain't got talent, you can't do it. And then there's skill. Skill is what you develop, and you can develop a certain level of skill on your own. But when you combine the skill and the talent, somebody still has to teach you how to play. And that's what coaches do. And there is no coach who's an active player. Coaches are people who have played or studied the game and have always been around it. And then they're teaching you how this game goes and what kind of player you can be. Looking at your skill set and your talent, say this is who you are. This is where you can be. The reason you need coaches, everybody needs coaches. You never get too good not to need coaches, because when you're you can never see the picture when you're in the frame. The only and in life, as just like in sports, you see the whole game, but you never see yourself play. So somebody has to tell you this is what's going on with you in this game, and help you understand how to make those adjustments. So there is a place for old folks. It just ain't on the court or in the field. Okay, it's in the booth or in the film room. Okay, to say this is what you got wrong. This is what you need to do better next time. And when you're working on your individual game, your skill development, work on this move, that move. Because here's the thing. Bad coaches can lose you games, but you win games because players make plays. What coaches do is put players in a position to make plays. Good players even make great plays. That's number one. Number two, we have a culture problem. And I'll go back to my sports metaphor. There's two reasons you lose regularly, bad teams. The one reason could be talent. Your players are just not good enough. Okay, I mean, we're in a league and a conference where people are just flat ass better than us. I need better players. But usually there's not that much difference in talent at whatever level you're playing with at. But the real difference between winners and losers are culture. The culture of the team, the culture of the organization. And winning teams have a certain culture. Losing teams also have a certain culture. And here is what indicative of what separates a winning team from a losing team. And this is where we are as Black people now. On losing teams, if you go into the locker room after the game, everybody's looking at the stat sheet about how did I do? Okay? Did I hit my numbers? Because that's how I get paid. You go in the locker room of a championship team, all they look at is the score. Did we win? Okay. And if we won, it's because everybody did what they were supposed to do. And my numbers don't matter if it didn't contribute, as long as it contributes to us winning. So I'll even make adjustments in my game tonight because somebody else is rolling. Okay. And that's where we're going. So even though I'm the leading scorer, I don't have to be the leading scorer every night. But we come here every night to win the game. What we got is a losing team because we got a lot of individuals worried about their number, not if we win. And that's what's changed for us. Historically, we were concerned with us winning, not me winning. And the only reason I needed to be the player that I became was so we could win and be a better team. Not so I could be a better player, but we could be a better team. And you played the best player. You were modeling that. So those ancestors Charles was talking about, that old guys who were walking around who have stayed too long, and not prima donnas who want to be stars. And that's the most important thing. We got a losing culture. We got enough talent. We got as much talent as we've ever had. Probably better, more skilled in terms of being better educated and all of that. But our problem is we no longer know how to win or what it takes to be a winning team. So think about it. We survived. Let's just take the country. I won't even worry about North America. From 1789 to 1865 is basically 175 years of legal slavery in America. We survived that shit. We survived another 90 years of Jim Crow, American apartheid. We survived that shit. We taught black kids how to read when it was illegal, and you can say, because people went out in the middle of the Mississippi River at night to teach black kids how to read. We control every goddamn school in America that black kids go to, and we can't teach nobody how to fucking read. Mm-hmm. So if our ancestors, if their game has been as weak ass as ours is today, none of us would be here in this conversation. Our asses would have been gone. Our asses would have been gone a long time ago.
But why don't we have, Mike, let me ask you this though. Why don't we have that courage anymore? When you talk to people now, some of the conversations that I was having last night, there is no courage in their conversation. There's no enthusiasm. Everybody believes that this is just how it's going to be. They don't even want to make a difference. That's what's so problematic for me. You have people that have the ability to make a difference, and they don't even want to. They don't even want to challenge the system. They don't even want to challenge the people around them. How can you be around these people and they saying these things and you don't even want to challenge them on it?
I'm going to stay with something. Larry and I have spent a lot of time around the game, basketball, particularly the developmental part, young players. I will say that today's athletes, like the folks you're talking about, are the most skilled generation that we've ever seen. I will also tell you that, to quote Daryl P. W. Leonard, they soft as hospital cotton. Okay? That's the fucking problem. They babysit soft. And they were raised babysit soft. Ain't anytime your whole adolescent growing up experience is your mama making play dates for you, you ain't gonna be worth a shit. That fundamentally, all of us survived walking out the house and figured out how to get through the playground every day. How to handle and manage all these relationships. Good, bad, indifferent, good, bad, and ugly. We no longer do that. So we have produced a generation that's never had to compete, never had to respond to failure. Because everybody failed. Matter of fact, as Yoda says in one of the Star Wars, failure is the only teacher. Don't nobody learn shit from winning. You learn
When you lose.
from failing.
Mhm.
And if you're never permitted to fail and never have to come back for it, you know, then you don't have an experience. And it needs to happen when you're young, when it don't matter, if you know what I mean. These
Right,
are
right.
that yeah. The mistakes don't matter, but they're all part of character development. And we used to have institutions that developed that. You know, the black barbershop is more than just where you get your haircut. The black church used to be more than where you went to hear a sermon on Sunday. Okay, these were institutions that were fundamental to how we evolved and developed from children to adulthood. They were both teachers and accountability things. Okay, because you wanted to be seen a certain way when you went to get a haircut. I'll give you a classic example. None of my children's mother ever took them to get a haircut. You didn't let that men took boys to get a haircut till boys were big enough to go by themselves. Because there were conversations that boys needed to hear inside of that space. And that's where black men told stories that they
It was like a
already
rites
knew.
of passage.
Yeah, and they told stories that they already knew. This wasn't new for them, but it was new for every generation that sit there. So there was a connection between who you are and what's come before you. So all of that is formative. Audre Lorde is right. You cannot use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. And I'll say, really, literally, one last thing on this point. If you, and I'm gonna say it's, I call this generation, Gerald, the DSEG generation, and I mean it disparagingly, by the way. Okay, I'm a product of segregated schools, and which meant all black schools, not bad schools, just all black schools. So I
Right.
didn't. By the time I dealt with the white integrated America, I was a grown man, or at least 19, 20 years old by the time I got to the University of Missouri. Here is what I will say. I'll suggest, because I'm not expert on this. Charles is, and you can correct me if you think I got anything substantively wrong. I'm sure I got some of it wrong. But where your children go to preschool and third grade really don't matter, because kids are just kids. You know, they do kid stuff. Where your children go to high school, junior high school or middle school can matter, and where they go to high school definitely matters, because you're transitioning from, in adolescence, from being a child to becoming adult. And fundamentally, your personality is going to be shaped by those adolescent experiences and how you relate it to them. If you send a black child into a culturally dominant white environment that doesn't have any black outlet, you know, like the school is 80% white, but 20% black. So all the black kids, there's a black core that you can stay connected to in school, because we all eat lunch together, we all rode the bus together, whatever. But just in that general environment, and they have a successful experience. They make friends, they get grades, they go on to college, they develop literally everything you want your child to do. Here's the thing that you never think about, and that as I'll say, as the parent, you miss. The one thing that I can guarantee, the one thing I can guarantee, or skill I can guarantee that that child has mastered in successfully transitioning through that experience is that they know how to accommodate white folks. Because if they hadn't been able to master that skill, they could never have been successful in that environment. So their fundamental context now in the world is not how I advance Black folks, but how do I accommodate white folks to continue to be successful? Because that's what I learned. Okay, I didn't teach myself that. You put me in an environment that in order for me to be successful, I had to master that skill. And then you want to criticize that child who is now an adult, but not functioning in the way you need him to function or her to function as a Black man or woman in leadership. You didn't make a Black
And I
leader.
think that's exactly the problem.
Well, we are sent
But
to,
Mike, you hit the nail on the head, because we got several generations that are like that now. All they know how to do is accommodate white people because that is the environment that they grew up in. And you cannot convince them. Just like you said, the master's tools will not be used to destroy the master's house. You cannot convince them that that is the truth, because they believe that they can use these tools. They believe that they are Americans. They believe in all of this system. And when you approach them with this voice that you don't believe in it, that you don't believe in this system, then they think the problem is you. Like I told them, I'm not American. I'm not no American. I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm here by force. It was by force that I'm here. I obey the rules of this country because I live in this country. You know, the laws. I follow the laws of this country because I'm a citizen of this country. I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm not no American. I don't. The whole 4th of July, like you said, with Frederick Douglass and these holidays and these customs, and those are American customs for American. That's for white people. That's not for us. But we don't understand that. And we are so bought into this. It's just like why we having a problem now with the election. We don't need to be Democrat or Republican. We need to be thinking about what is going to be in the best interest for Black people. What is going to move us forward? We are so worried about the Democratic Party. The hell with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. We need to figure out what's going to be best for us, because as you indicated already, their margins appear to evenly split, just like Malcolm X said in the late 60s. It's our united effort, whichever way we go is who's going to determine the winner. But we don't see that at all. We're just not conscious of that at all.
yeah, and let me just add this, Doc, real quick. The issue is, Mike, you said that they're more talented. I don't think they are, and here's why I say that. Because if in fact we equate their talent with their education, they're skilled and so forth, because every moment in school, they're teaching you to solve America's problems. Like right along with Audre Lorde's quote, they are not going to teach you how to solve Black America's problem. None of that. And the further we, there's a reason why we've had, a disproportionate number of Black individuals with a 6th grade education back in the day proved to be very, very successful. It's because education not only places things in you, but it takes away some things from you. And if it takes away your Black consciousness, that's a problem. And that's what a number of overschooling does. We've got a major problem. We don't recognize that our entire existence is based on the number of problems that we can solve for them. I challenge you and I'm sure there's some people out there that there's some outliers that can state that they had a class on solving problems one-on-one in the Black community, but I haven't seen them. I haven't seen a program for that. We've had to fight for Africana studies courses all over the world. We've had to fight for Africana classes, and they are outlawing those classes and all across the country at this point. Dr. Alexander, please.
Point number one is we are the tools. So they train us to do what they need done. And so of course they're not going to train us to deconstruct it. That's what they train us to do. They train us to maintain it. That's we the tools. And so that's point A. Point B, yes, all that stuff we saying about the educational process is true. But again, this just another blatant example of our unwillingness or inability to make good use of history is this thought that this fight about Black studies or whatever is new. That this was the fight that was occurring when Mike went to college. Open enrollment. This was the fight that was going on when Mike went to college. These fights are fights that have been fought since we've been going to school, period, in some shape, way, or form.
Back when Samuel locked up the trustees at Morehouse.
Yes. And so, historically, these have been the nature of the fight. We go back and we look at, we go back to the Negro Convention movement. They're fighting for education. They're fighting for a certain kind of education. They're having discussions about what kind of jobs folks need to take. Under what circumstances will you take this kind of job? They're having conversations about sellouts, people who work for the man and not for us, don't deal with them. We're having all of these conversations. Today, not so much. We're not really having those conversations. And then when we have the conversation, if we even get close to the conversation, we act like it's a brand new conversation as opposed to the continual fight and struggle. Right. So we have a tremendous amount of difficulty looking at the continuum and understanding that this has just been one long war in which we occasionally win a battle. And then we do stuff like what was that movie? Hamburger Hill. All the people got killed to win it, and then they gave it up. We good at that. We got all these Hamburger Hills. And so, and that's this thing that we in right now. Anybody but Trump. So we go with Biden, and then because he's an old white man, and because he said he gonna pick a Black woman to be the running mate. Then he picks a Black woman that can't even win in a dang on primary. She gone after the first and second primary, right? But Negroes happy because we got a tool, right? So she served his purpose. She can't serve our purpose. The people didn't want her. Served his purpose, got him elected, and now part of the reason why these other white folks he keep chasing that he ain't gonna get, part of the reason that he ain't gonna get them is because they know he's not gonna make it through another term, and they don't want her to be a president.
What do you recommend we do now, Dr. Alexander?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Here's I want to go straight to Charles's point. That's a truth that we just ought to recognize. That ain't no secret for anybody looking. That's a problem. Now, Charles said we have a strategy. No, it's not a strategy, a tactic. Anybody but Trump. Okay? Then acknowledge that you didn't pick Biden because you thought he was better. You picked him because he wasn't Trump. So that was that situation. So don't lord him with all of these attributes that he ain't got, and that wasn't the reason you picked him. No,
that's why you ain't pick him.
You were stuck between bad and worse, and you picked bad, which is a rational way to look at. Okay, I had two bad options. I picked the one that was least bad for me, not better for me, least bad. Our problem is we now got black leadership that want to dress this shit up like we did a great thing. Here's the other thing. If you had serious politicians, you knew Biden was gonna be this old 4 years ago.
Exactly.
Ain't nobody got a plan for an 85-year-old president, because that's what he would be at the end of a term. So here's what I would have done if you had put me in the room. If we came to the decision that Biden, it had to be Biden in 2020. I'm not gonna argue that point. I'll accept that point. And if we said that you're gonna need a preferably a black woman VP, because we desperately need black folks to turn out, and particularly black women. So Kamala Harris, you're it. Then I just think it to Joe Biden. Your ass will be too old 4 years from now. So this deal with you is just for one term. You're done after this term. Kamala Harris, and you can't run for president in 2024. Because the reason we got this problem now is all these racist ass white folks that are scared to death of another black president. Okay, so we need a strategy. So you're gonna get a chance to make history twice. You're gonna be the first black female vice president, and you're gonna be the first black female on the Supreme Court. Why? Because we're gonna make whatchamajigga quit in 2022, so you can get promoted to the Supreme Court.
See,
And
Democrats, they don't think strategically like that at all.
yeah, and then Gavin Newsom, go find your house in D.C. because you're gonna be the vice president. You're the former governor of California. You're tall, better looking than Trump's ignorant old fat ass. And I will have flipped the entire script. Joe, thank you very much. Take your bag and take your old ass home. Play with your dogs and your grandkids. Come on, and now you got a lifetime job at a premier spot. You're on the Supreme Court of the United States, and you got a chance to do some good work there. Okay, and guess what? We'll win this goddamn election to blow them out there. And also, when we beat them in 2024, I'm dismantling all this shit. Okay, fuck Lincoln. That malice towards none, charity towards all. Fuck all of that. Okay, we tearing all of it up. It's gonna be 13 people on the Supreme Court. They're gonna have term limits. All the federal judges Trump appointed. We're gonna expand the federal judiciary to water down their impact. And the first thing we're gonna do is pass the voting rights bill and federalize congressional elections. So they ain't gonna be a function of the thing, because the Constitution says that the House and Senate races are a function of the states, except until Congress decides something else. So I'm gonna take this shit away from all these crazy right-wing white folks, and you can stay in them little country red states if you want to. As a matter of fact, keep fucking around, and y'all poor ass go get poor, because I'll quit sending money, because I ain't that kind of American. I ain't got that kind of empathy for you. So this is the way we gonna run this shit. And the reason we gonna run it like this, if I was that white boy, I say, because I don't need your crazy cracker ass, but I do need these black folks and Hispanic folks if I'm gonna stay in charge. So that matter of fact, Charles is from Chicago. Ain't that the way Richard Daley II ran it? He said when folks say you can't do that, he said, I'm the mayor of Chicago. And I'm the mayor of Chicago because black Democrats and black Hispanics vote for me. I really don't care what them white folks don't like them don't say, because they didn't make me the mayor. That's how politicians are. I reward my friends. I will punish my enemies. Period. Okay? And that's why I need to win, because I don't want them to win. Not because I'm a better moral person than them, just because I don't want them to win and I can't afford for them to be in charge of me. That you ain't got to make it no more complicated than that.
Well, how do we
It
clean
just-
up this situation now?
I don't know, man.
We in the same
Yes.
situation, and so so the thing you still gotta
minute.
vote your interest.
Wait a minute. You asked me how you do organized crime when you ain't got no gangsters no more. I don't know. Gangsters.
Oh, what
are
I guess
prerequisite.
this is what I'm asking. What I want to get your opinion on is that, do we sit Biden down and replace him, or do
Now,
we
you know
try
what?
to roll this out? Because to me, it seems
Wait a minute.
difficult to think that we can make it all the way to November with Biden right now, because the amount of scrutiny that he's going to be under.
Here's what I think is your problem. That stipulate that Biden's too old. That stipulate if we were smarter, not brilliant, just a little smarter, we could have avoided this, but we didn't. If you say we need to sit him down, okay. Now, if I'm in the room doing that deal, tell me who takes his place. Okay, have we got a deal on the replacement?
Because Gavin Newsom has already said that he doesn't want to step in at this point.
Well, that's what he's supposed to say. That don't mean shit.
But he definitely don't want to be as Kamala's running mate.
Right.
You know,
okay.
He's not going to do second to her.
Right. So the point is, you got to sit her down. In this scenario, she got to be set down. Now, black folks ain't gonna understand that because they ain't politicians and they don't know how this shit works. Okay. So I'm just saying, before you replace Biden, you have to have all of that worked out, because you can't go to the convention with all this shit up in the air. So if we ain't got a deal on that, then you got to live with this old motherfucker. Pardon my French. Okay? And then we got to tough it out and tell everybody, you shut this shit. Okay, I'll let y'all bitch about this. You through bitching? Put it like this. We lost game 4. We the Boston Celtics. Not only we lose game 4, we lost it by 38. Okay? Now the press and all that shit's out there talking, and we gotta listen to that for a minute. But we're gonna get on the bus, go back to the hotel, take a shower, get yourself something to eat. Let's go win game 5. We leave in Dallas in the morning. Let's go win game 5. Because we came here to win 4 games. I don't care what the reporters think, because they ain't players. I don't even care what the fans think, because they voters and they don't know. We got to win 4 games. Game 4 is over. Let's play game 5. Biden's too old. He shouldn't be here. We screwed that up. Okay, what we gonna do by November? Also, we can't undo none of that. And the reason we can't undo it, because we ain't got no deal who ought to take his place. Because we ain't organized gangsters enough to do that deal. Because we got all this transparency bullshit and all these consultants who were really no more than pimps, political pimps, all in our business. So when you had the Richard Daley's and the Coleman, when you had backroom cigar smoke and whiskey, you got better decisions than this bullshit that we get now. The reason I got no interest in being an elected official or having a career in politics really ain't that I didn't like politics. I kind of love the shit, but I didn't want to be bothered with this kind of bourgeois bullshit. You know, put me in the room with them people y'all don't like too much, and you take that they got ethics problems. Because literally, I would rather do business with the Medellin cartel than Jamie Dimon or any other major CEO. Assuming I was tough enough to do business with the Medellin, because I would trust them more than I trust the American corporation. But that's our problem.
I think that that is our problem. I don't think that four corners of that of the argument exceed what you've just stated. That's it. You made the statement in prior times that you know, naming Bill Clay and Stokes and those guys, you would take one of them over the entire Black Caucus that we have today. And that and I think that that point is hammered home again.
So we in
And-
pretty bad situation. Wait, Charles, I hear as Zero, I'll say it like this. Nobody wants to have to play game 7 because anything can happen in game 7. You want to win it someplace between 5 and 6. Okay. 4 if you really roll it. But you don't want to go past 6 because anything can happen in game 7. But if you find
It
yourself
seems like that's where we at now. We in game
Well,
7.
we in game 7. So the only
Where
question
anything
is,
can happen. Because you think about Biden is out now with this COVID, and I don't know how serious the COVID is with him, but they have him very underground. I know that.
but here's the point. You got to win game 7 to win the championship. So it don't
Right.
make no difference that you don't want to be here. The question is, how do we win game 7? I don't even care about the other 6 no more. Okay? Because the other 6 don't matter. Only thing that matters is game 7. And that's the mentality you got to have. Game 7, fellas.
But we're
Okay,
going into game 7 with
and last year, or the last election, we wasn't playing like we didn't vote like game 7. Last election,
That's right.
we voted like it was game
Game
it was
5,
game 4.
wait.
It was game
4.
4. We was already down 0-3.
Right.
And so we was ready to we about to go on vacation. And so that's what we got. That's why we didn't do Jack Dooley squat. We didn't do Jack Dooley squat. And he ain't really done Jack Dooley squat since he been in. And we keep making up all of the stuff that he's done. And in reality, it's really no better. It just looks different. And
But it
there's
goes
a lot
back
of ways
to
that is
Dr.
worse.
Alexander, what we said at the beginning. We don't have an agenda. And without having an agenda,
We ignore our agenda.
we're not pushing it.
We ignore our agenda. We're person focused instead of agenda focused. And so we keep, we keep struggling because of that. And we don't look at things that work. Again, so borrowing from Mike and the sports analogies. The Pittsburgh Steelers have had 4 coaches in my lifetime.
Right.
And you wait a minute, and you going on, you're closer to 60 than you are 50, right?
I am closer to 60 than I am 50.
Right.
And they stay relevant. They stay relevant because they do what they do. They got a draft strategy. They got a office. What the only reason they struggle is because they had to get right. They had to get right with their offensive struggle. But their defense in the 70s, they running a 4-3 defense with a cover 2. That's the Steelers. In the 80s, they went to a 3-4. And what do they run? They run a 3-4 defense with a cover 2. They play a lot of zone. And so they draft people that do exactly what they need done. And if you can't do it, you can't play for the Steelers. That's stability. Stability. We fluctuate. The DNC fluctuates and Black folks fluctuate with them. We got random reasons why we like folks. We like Bill Clinton because he played the saxophone on Arsenio Hall. Have no reason to like some white man from Arkansas who leaves the campaign trail to go execute a Black man on death row. But we wanted that. Yay! Then after you get him, you got Black folks lined up for his wife for no reason other than the fact that she was his wife. Black folks wasn't going to vote for Barack Obama. Black folks was going to vote for Hillary Clinton.
White folks
Easily.
voted for Barack Obama.
Yes.
Young white
And they
people.
would have been fine if Bill Clinton didn't revert back to Southern white man. It wasn't until he started talking about Black folks vote emotionally and start saying incendiary things on the podium that even the clown Negro in South Carolina had to say enough is enough. And that's what flipped the thing for Barack. Black folks was going to vote for Hillary Clinton for no other reason than that she was married to Bill Clinton. We were riding on that same trajectory. It ain't been no real primary.
After she ran through Africa, like the colonialists
and Haiti
and should never be forgiven for what she's done in Haiti.
And so we've been on the same roller coaster, thinking there have been primaries, and there ain't been no primary. There ain't been no primary in probably 30 years. They done picked who gonna be whatever. And then somebody decided, you know what, we don't really want Hillary. That's how we got Barack. And we steadily thinking we did that. They did that. We went with it because we was gonna have a Black president, and that's fine. But that's how that happened. And then because he jumped her, they said, what, you know what? Hillary still get a chance. So Joe, sit down. So that makes Joe that's what made him the 3-time loser. He the vice president. They told him to sit down.
And that's why he's the 77, that's why he's the 80-year-old one.
Yes.
Incumbent. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Because he got pushed back in the line.
They told him to sit down.
And
that's how we ended up with Trump.
Yes. Yes.
That's exactly how we ended up with Trump.
Because we got a terrible offensive coordinator. Whoever it is, they terrible.
Our player development department needs to be.
Player development sucks. We don't know how to draft.
Right.
Wait a minute. Now you guys know why I use sports as the metaphor, because it takes this stuff that's really kind of messy and complicated and simplifies it for everybody who thinks they know something.
Right. And Hillary got on the field and didn't give it 100% when we put her out there.
Right.
She couldn't play hurt. Yeah, she couldn't play. She couldn't. You know, she was taking weekends off. You know, with missing training sessions.
Everything.
So this is.
She thought she was entitled. She was entitled to be the president. She thought that.
She was, because that's what was happening. She ain't just randomly arrived at that conclusion. They said it was so. Them jokers moved to New York in 1999, and she ran for the Senate in 2000.
So the question is this a democracy or not? I mean, we're seeing things.
No, it is not.
We're seeing things in the Supreme Court now that has even the bourgeois saying, what is this? What, I mean, how will we define?
It has never been that for
now,
us.
we know that, Larry, you know the court has been compromised. We also know, Mike, going back to what you say, Trump is a gangster.
America is a criminal enterprise. That's
it's a criminal enterprise too. But Trump is always out for what's going to be in his best interest. Trump is not putting anybody on the Supreme Court who is not, when he is interviewing them, who is not going to ensure to him that at some point they are going to do what he needs done for him.
Girl, I'm going to.
And that's what we're seeing now.
That should be any of the presidents should be doing.
I'm gonna come to the defense of gangsters. Trump ain't no gangster. Trump is a thug, a thief, a con man.
Okay.
But that's an insult to real real gangsters. I will say this though. He recognized when he playing against soft ass bourgeois, upper middle class nothings. Not because he's that tough, but he know they ain't tough. So the Republicans, as well as the Democrats, his position is I'm from Queens, and I couldn't run Queens, but I can punk all of y'all, and that's really what he's doing.
And
That
that's what
is
he doing.
it. That is
Right.
it in a nutshell. That is it.
But he ain't that tough. It's just they that soft.
Right. And he definitely punked the court. There's no doubt about that.
Wait a
I
minute.
mean, they picked
Wait,
the court.
what-
I mean,
wait a
but
minute.
that was a
What you-
strategy of the Republican Party.
Wait, but if you look at the profile of the Republican Party, he took their stuff away from them. What you really ought to be glad of is Anna the philosopher, political theorist, talked about the banality of evil when she talked about the Nazis in the 30s. And she was referring to basically just how ordinary Hitler and them was. Wasn't nobody super smart, wasn't nobody, they was about as mediocre and average as it comes. Trump the same way.
Exactly.
What if we caught any break is that he's pulled this off and been this mediocre. Had he been talented and smart, the shit would be over with by now. We wouldn't even be talking about this.
Right. You're right
And
about that.
the only reason we still got a chance is because he's as ignorant and incompetent and flawed individual as he is. And not the MAGA Republicans, but the Republican establishment is as greedy and inept as the Democrats. They just probably a little bit more greedier than the Democrats, makes them a little tougher. But fundamentally, they come closer to being a political party than the Democrats do. And I would frame all of this as you are looking at the collapse of a civilization. Somewhere in the beginning to the middle, the American project is just about over. Okay, now it could rehabilitate itself and go better, but if you think about some of the men that have been president of the United States, and they've been a lot of dogs. I think I said that a couple of 3 weeks ago. But Washington, Jefferson, Madison, Lincoln, a Grant, Franklin Roosevelt, and you compare them, just their leadership skill, their ability to answer the bell when everything was on the line, and then you compare this to the leadership that America produces now. This ain't even junior varsity. This is, like in high school, you said the varsity, the B team, and the C team. They C team. There's literally, this is the most ordinary, mediocre bunch of people to ever be vested with the authority to run a world empire, probably in the history of the planet. So if this is the best America got, this shit is over with.
And to that point, like, so how many people voted for Trump last time?
74 million.
74 million. One of the things, Gerald, we have to do, we really got to we got to do a better job of understanding what is. I imagine there was a time where what Malcolm said was true, but that shit ain't true. More people voted for Trump than there are Black people in the United States. Twice as many. The only people who need us to win are the Democrats. The Republicans don't need us. The Democratic Party needs us in order for there to be a Democrat in office, period. So we can't afford all of that foolishness, we gonna just be independent and we gonna go to the highest, but that ain't gonna work for us because we ain't got no relationships outside of this. Because we've been listening to them in that regard. We've been listening to the country. That hadn't even been a political, that's been a nationalist thing. That we've been listening to the United States. And because of that, we ain't got no sovereign relationships on the continent. We ain't got no sovereign relationships in the Caribbean. We ain't got nothing but these crazy people who have done all they could do to make sure that we know that we're not welcome. Yet we keep knocking on their door. Y'all ready for us yet? They don't want us. And so, because they do a little something, them Democratic people, just to get our attention, to get our votes, because they need them, we clap our hands, which is how we got into this situation with Joe Biden. Because it was the same situation we was gonna be in with Hillary Clinton. The first time she tried to run and the second time she tried to run. This is our problem because we don't understand the foolishness that we in. We ain't level set yet.
And on that note, I think that is a great place to wind up this discussion. I would love to have closing remarks from each individual. We'll start with the incredible Attorney Gerald Christmas.
Got to fight on our hands, and we got to get ready. And I just think everybody has to stay vigilant and address these issues head on. And we have to show some courage.
Absolutely. Dr. Alexander.
Again, we got to recognize what this thing is. I mean, we just are continue to be lost. We tread in water at best. And so as soon as we can recognize that this thing is bad, the better off we'll be instead of continuously trying to, we white men apologists. And we gotta stop being that. We just gotta acknowledge that this thing is what it is. And it's rough for us. And we gotta decide how we're gonna fight and decide where there are reasonable allies. And unless we don't do that, then, we might as well, I don't know, some point, we just probably need to give in if we ain't gonna fight. We just need to be.
Dr. Alexander, earlier you referenced the ancestors in terms of the blueprints that have already been laid out. If you could give the listeners and viewers, and I'm going to ask each of you all to do that, one specific book or article or roadmap that would help us in this tepid time.
Billy Fuller, the compensatory code, and this simple thing you gotta know. If you don't understand white supremacy, everything else will simply confuse you.
So give us the name of the book again, Doc.
The compensatory code.
The compensatory code, absolutely. JT, we're coming back to you after we speak and get remarks from the Mike Jones.
I think what Charles and Gerald said are true, but the question right now in front of us is how we win Game 7. Because what Gerald and Charles said only matters if we win Game 7. Okay, if we don't win Game 7, we ain't got nothing.
Game 7?
Yeah, we ain't got nothing to talk about. So the real question is how we got to Game 7 don't matter, because this is where we are. And when Game 7 is over in November, somebody going home a winner, somebody going home a loser. The only question is, what do you want to be? If we survive Game 7, then we got a whole lot of work to do. If we don't survive Game 7, it'll be kind of over for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I can give you I won't give you a book, but playing off, creating a riff off what Charles just played, if I wanted everybody to read one and understand one thing, it would be read and remember this brother said this in 1852. Okay, read Frederick Douglass's 4th of July speech in 1852. What to the slave is the 4th of July? That's the short version of what Charles was talking about, because it fundamentally defines who we are then and really who we are now. That 170 some years later, fundamentally, he could give that same speech today without changing the word. And literally, if you can internalize that or the book, whatever, any of this conversation, once you start to realize who you are and where you are, then you got a chance to do something about it. But if you can't come to those two realities, who am I and where am I? And where do I go from here? Then how you got here gets to be relevant, but the how you got here ain't relevant if you don't know who you are and you ain't got no idea about where you want to go. So I'm gonna go revert back to what I call one of the ancestors who's part of the pantheon of ancestors, and that's Douglass. And for me, and this is more extended, but for me, what has happened is as I have gotten older, the more profound all of them have become. Okay. And I will say at 25 or 30, I didn't see it. At 20, I didn't see it. At 75, they speak to you a whole lot differently. No, you hear, because they've always been speaking. It just takes a while for you to hear them. And now we've got a couple generations, including ours, mine and yours, that ain't even trying to hear them. Wait a minute, we don't play those records no more. Okay, right. The reason you can't talk to them about Miles and Coltrane is because they never played them. They don't even know who you're talking about.
Gerald Christmas, what reading would you suggest?
I'm gonna tell them to do what I do. You go get the St. Louis American and you go back and you read Mike Jones's columns, and you will get a wealth of education and understanding about where you need to go and what we need to be doing right now in this time period, and how it applies to us now from the past to the present. That's what I do.
That is good counsel.
And Larry, can I get that full title?
Absolutely.
For Neely Fuller, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept.
Okay. I would echo I don't need to make any closing statement because I'm just echoing everything that you all stated, but I will give 2 points that I think a fundamental groundwork for all of us should be, or part of our fundamental groundwork, because there's several. But Carter G. Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro, I think is just comprehensive, and that should encourage you to unlearn a number of things and to learn what you need to know about you. And I think for my money, dollar for dollar, pound for pound, Carter G. Woodson is one of the greatest that ever walked the face of the earth. In addition to that, I would add a much more voluminous source, which is Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power. That is it is just an incredible piece that deals with international issues as well as domestics issues. And I mean, he even goes as far as to break down just a number of the games that we have assumed are fair play here. One thing, it always blows my mind when I hear speculation about the Fed is doing, what the Fed is going to do. What if, Amos Wilson does a very good job. This is the first time I've seen this in print of identifying who the actual Federal Reserve is. Federal Reserve is nothing but the, chairmen of the banks and a few spots to the government. So the banks, you've got the wolves watching the hen house, and we're acting as if, we've got a chairman that has some legitimate power over this thing. And so, I mean, all of these things, these internal workings inside of America are spelled out in that treatise, because it's more than a book. And it's almost 800 pages or more, but it's something that we need to have as a reference. So we want to thank you all for joining the Level Set this week. And if you are listening to this or viewing this on YouTube, feel free to leave comments and hit that like button. And if it's the Lord's will, we look forward to seeing you all next week.